Good evening and welcome to Ear Meal again. Today we have a special guest. We're changing the format a little bit. It's not going to be a performance. We're going to spend 30 minutes with an amazing artist, Michael McMillen. And thank you for coming on, Michael.
Well, thanks for asking, Alan.
Appreciate it. Up to this point, we've primarily had sound artists. It is a sound arts webcast. But I wanted to invite Michael because, and you'll see in a minute, we're going to go through some of his portfolio. A lot of the musicians and composers we've had on Ear Meal also do visual arts. And they're certainly inspired by visual arts. And of many of the plethora of artists that we have in town, Michael's work has always conjured sound to me. And I just thought it would be awesome to have him on the show. And sometimes they have sound, but sometimes I especially like the pieces that don't have sound, but they allude to sound, like they make me hear sound in my mind. Much like when you read a book and you have visuals in your mind. Michael's, your work kind of inspires sound in my mind. That's what. So we're gonna go through a PowerPoint first of some work,
okay,
and then some of these more video type work. So let's roll it.
Okay. This image is a sample of an early installation called the Traveling Mystery Museum from 1973. I wanted to explore the realm of perception and how people see what they want to see. So I built a strange kind of roadside attraction museum that had these outlandish displays in it. Oh, we're zooming ahead, aren't we? Anyhow, the Mystery Museum was full of things that questioned your perception. The image on the screen right now is the Pavilion of Rain. We built a pond out at Northridge and constructed this shanty in the middle of the pond. It had about 4 inches of water in it, and there was a rain machine that rained for 20 minutes twice an hour, and the viewer could walk into this realm. It was dark, and you hear the sounds of animals in the distance, and you'd hear the rain falling into the pond. And as you walked across the bridge into this piece, it had a strangely calming effect on people. As you're inside, sheltered from the rain, and the dappling light reflected inside, it had a kind of a calming effect. And I even had a string hammock installed in it, and people would go to sleep in there. So it had a very calming effect. This is a piece called Aristotle's Cage. It's in the collection of the Oakland Museum, and what you see is a tableau of the desert. In the foreground, you see a trailer, and out behind it, there's like an acre of junked cars, oil drums, kitchen appliances, all kinds of things. And in the very horizon, there's the encroaching silhouette of industry marching into the environment.
But this particular piece, there's an orchestration of how the viewer walks into the space, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you enter into this through a screen door into this little antechamber, and then you peer out through a window, or a screened window, across this landscape, and it's actually only about 8 feet deep. So it's all built in forced perspective, because the trailer itself is about 16 inches long, and out of it comes sounds at a sound element, and everything behind it gets progressively smaller in scale, but it gives this illusion of great depth.
Scale is something you play with a lot. Right,
oh yeah.
Michael?
Yeah. It's a powerful element in our senses, I think, and it really it can transport us all kinds of ways. This is another detail of Aristotle's cage, showing some of the more of the detail around the trailer itself. This is a work from 1992, I think, or 3, called Siege. I was inspired by the horrors that were happening in Sarajevo, that siege was happening. In this piece, this was done at Art Center, and we built this 16-foot high by 40-foot wide steel wall across one end of the gallery. And from where we are seeing this thing, there was a smaller structure that fired these cannonballs across the gallery for about 70 feet, and they would slam into the wall, making this tremendous boom sound. And if you walked around to the other side, there was actually a way into that wall. It was hollow. And the next slide will show the image. So you could go inside the back of this thing and walk down this strange hallway, like an attic almost. And there's water flowing through the pipes, but you never knew when that cannonball was coming.
Right.
And you would jump out of your shoes when it hit. It was that frightening. So that was Siege.
So on one hand, it's a drum. On another, it's a simulation of being bombed.
Exactly.
Wow.
This is a work done at Caltech in 2005, 2006, called Dr. Crump's Mobile Laboratory. I built this trailer, and we delivered it one weekend when no one was around to campus, and installed it. And we put a sign up on the outside saying that this was part of a exploration of some subterranean laboratories that have been sealed off since the 30s. And using proprietary seismic imaging technology, Dr. Crump, who owned the patents on this technology, was hired to bring his trailer onto the campus and non-destructively explore the laboratories with his imaging device. And as you walked inside, this is what you saw inside the laboratory. His devices and other things happening. And then to the left, there's a small screen which showed the monitor going through the earth, centimeter by centimeter, down into the laboratory. It was there for about 6 months.
Amazing.
This is a work that it's owned by LACMA.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Central Meridian, but most people know it as the Garage. And in this piece, it was done in 1981. I wanted to make a portrait of Los Angeles. Now, how do you do that, right? So I thought that, LA is a city of cars, largely designed by the car in terms of streets and commuting. And I thought about the garage as kind of the analogy was the Egyptian funereal culture, where they have the pharaoh's barge stored for the afterlife. Only here we have the garage, all the projects that have never got finished, and the car that'll be worked on someday. And so I made this piece that was to take people out of the museum and transport them across time to when they're about 12 years old, and they've got into the neighbor's garage, and he's out at dinner, and they're kind of snooping around, and that's the piece.
Isn't this piece, and I got a chance to visit this quite a few times. Isn't there something about the piece where the more you look at things and read things, you start to realize that what this guy's possibly working on is much more than just the guy next door?
Yeah. It's like I'm making a portrait of someone without depicting them physically, but you depict their ideas or their artifacts, and from that we deduce an image of this persona.
Right. One of the things I love about your work, Michael, is, and it's like you're always saying, like, there's a little bit of Tesla in all of us, or something.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love.
This is another work called A Train of Thought. It ran for 6 months, and what you see is a miniature, a mining trestle and scaffolding that comes out from the gallery wall. And very slowly, there was a steady stream of yellow granular material falling from the end of the conveyor belt, making this ever-increasing pile of material at the end of the scaffolding. And by the end of the show, it was up at about maybe 3 feet high. And if a viewer was to put their hand into the stream and look at it, they would see numbers and letters. Because what I had done was I had about a half a ton of alphabet soup macaroni behind the wall in a hopper, and this thing was slowly feeding out the deconstructed language onto the floor. So I like to look at that piece and think about all the great works of literature being there, but deconstructed, reduced back to their letters and numbers.
Nice.
So that's called train of thought. This is another process piece called Deliverance. Maybe it's a study in frustration, but I built this machine that hung on the wall, and once every minute it would deliver one black bean into like an escapement, chutes and ladders kind of thing, where it'd come down a little path, come out the end of the pipe, and fall onto this porcelain plate with a dink sound, and more often than not would end up on the floor. So there were like 200,000 black beans at the end of the show, all over everywhere except the plate.
Wow.
So it was a meditation on frustration and patience. This is a piece called Pump House that was shown once at the Palm Springs Museum. You can see in the foreground there's a wellhead in the floor of the gallery with water coming up. It was being pulled up by a pump in the middle ground, and the building that says Hope, it actually is the pump house, and there was an engine inside it running it. You can see a steam engine on the side of the building with puffs of steam coming up periodically as the wheel went around, and that was a pump house. Another view of it from the opposite side. I had a small window in the side, and you could actually watch a film running inside it. This is a work that was shown in Paris a couple of years ago at that show they did on Los Angeles art. And this is a peephole piece that you walk up to and look into the viewer. And the next thing you see is this interior, a piece called Mike's Pool Hall. The pool hall was built in 1977. And it's a kinetic piece. The ceiling fan rotates. And if you look carefully, the billiard ball orbits a dead fly on the pool table.
Whoa.
So the whole thing is only about 9 inches high. But it gives a very convincing illusion of being this virtual space behind this door that couldn't possibly contain it. Again, kind of questioning your sense of place and scale. This is a work called The Red Trailer Motel. This piece was a series of these doors that you walked up to, and each one had a different view behind the peephole. This being one of them, called House of Water. As you watched this piece, it looked like it was night outside, except for the skylight, and every so often you would see fish swim by the windows and doors, and as they did so, they would go from green to red, red to green, green to red, red to green, back and forth.
Nice.
This is a work owned by the San Jose Museum of Art called The Third Eye. I was trying to kind of recall my impressions of the late 60s, early 70s, and built this piece. As you approach it, the door, the first thing you notice, obviously, is the sign, the head shop sign, Third Eye. And as you get close to the door, you start hearing kind of the faint strands of maybe Jimi Hendrix or the Doors or a bit of Dylan sometimes. Mm-hmm. And as you get closer, you smell, you look inside and you see this head shop, and you also smell patchouli oil under your nose. And as you look into it, the fan is rotating. There's a strobe light going off on the left of the image. There's a poster with strobe lights going off black lights. And up in the mezzanine, there's a disco ball rotating with little sparkles flying around the place. And this is the third eye. This is a head shop, and the next scene will show you what you're really looking at. So it's a convincing miniature. And here's a section of constructions. This one called the Raft of History. A lot of my work is built of found materials, things I've scavenged or recycled. This being no exception. It's about 4 feet long. If you could look inside the hull, you'd see like a large book with a big lag screw through it, anchored to the bottom of the ship. This one is called Vertical Landscape with Moth and Brick. The moth appears to be pulling this substantial brick up the side of a wall with a thread harness.
Nice.
This is one of my fond pieces. This is a piece called Picasso's Last Words. Apparently, at the time of his passing, the attending physician was able to put a funnel over his face and catch his last utterance. And he put it into a convenient bottle, which was an old wine bottle, near the bedside table, and that became Picasso's last words. They're inside that bottle. This is another work called Java. It extends from the wall 12 feet, and it's made entirely out of glue and coffee stir sticks.
Wow.
Yeah, I like this piece. I'm a big fan of civil engineering, as you might have guessed.
Absolutely.
This is a work called Kafka for Carrots. If you could look at it closer, there was actually a live carrot up in one of the retorts, and I had the works of Kafka in another retort with liquids being bubbled around it. So the essence of Kafka was being fed to the carrot. This is a construction called the Fun Zone. I grew up in Santa Monica and have really interesting memories of the old Ocean Park amusement park, which is long gone now, but it was a very seedy place when I was a kid. It later became POP, but when I was a kid, it was this really creepy, run-down amusement park. Another construction called Pico Escondido, again taking fragments of imaginary architecture and making these compositions. So they're really kind of almost like three-dimensional paintings.
Mm.
Another piece, this is a wall-mounted miniature building. Again, changing the viewer's point of view. This is a public sculpture. This one is a piece I did for the Metro Gold Line. This is the Fillmore Street Station piece. The tower is about 42 feet high, I believe. And it was a very narrow, it was a challenging site because the site was very small. So I chose to make a vertical piece that would work in the given landscape there. And the next scene shows a detail of it. As the viewer approaches the train platform, they pass by this highly detailed 9-foot bronze column, which clads the lower portion of the tower. And the next shot will show the detail, showing why we need more rail systems, because there's 6-lane gridlock.
Nice.
As a decorative band. And you can see the little buildings and other details in it. And these are some film installations I've been doing the last several years. This is called North Star. You entered through these strange screen doors and would enter into this dark gallery and see this strange, like a chicken coop grandstand kind of at one side of the gallery, surrounded by tires. And in the middle ground, there was like an ocean of these Pontiac GTO cars parked, all aimed at the screen, where there was a concept drive-in movie running. Mm-hmm. So you could sit there and watch the films across the tops of the cars.
Nice.
Another view of it. This was shown recently in a show with Lauren Richardson out at Cal State Northridge. This is another film installation, a piece called Asylum of Lost Thoughts. This is how you got into it, through these old doors. This was at the Craft and Folk Art Museum up on Wilshire. And as you walked into the room, you saw this strange, dreamlike hospital tableau. There was like an iron bed behind which was a hanging thin sheet on which was projected the films. And the viewers would sit in the position of a visitor watching this whole tableau. This was a piece called The Quotidian Man, done recently at the Armory in Pasadena. In this tableau, we constructed a proscenium out of camouflage and cardboard and corrugated metal, again to transport the viewer out of where they think they are to another realm. So it was a very elaborate frame for the film. And these are some stills from some of the films.
We actually have some films to show, don't we?
I think so.
Could we, can you say a little bit, do we have Bridge to Hell queued up?
Oh, make sure your sound's up for this one.
We're in good hands with Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Mind may be a beautiful thing, but it's also a battleground.
Contacts appear to be heading 315 now, speed 430, Angels approximately 8,000.
Standby. 3.
You want to talk a little bit about that one? What did we just see?
Well, that's called the Bridge to Hell.
Right.
And, well, I don't know what to say. It's sometimes I use quoted clips from other films, but mostly I'll use my own stuff, but try to integrate it in such a way that it seems like a seamless kind of integral part. So they really are. They're collages. I think of them as collages.
When you're in your studio and you're building these works or you're working, do you listen to music? Do you?
It depends. Sometimes I prefer silence.
Silence?
Especially when I'm working on the film things. I usually work the visuals first, and I go back and design the sound to match the visuals afterwards.
That piece at the Armory was a wonderful piece. I got to see that piece. So you walk in, and it's you're in a white gallery basically, and you open the door and you go through this sort of curtained area. There's some seats.
Mm-hmm.
You sit down, and then the film starts, and it feels like you're in a completely different place.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was amazing. But I love the film itself. Can you? What inspired you to? It's almost like a surrealist film to me. It kind of reminds me of.
It has that quality. I've always enjoyed surrealism, and it's like life.
Yeah.
Pretty much. The film, The Quotidian Man, that piece went through many kind of morphings before it really happened. I had lots of ideas I started with and then rejected, and I finally came down to it. It was a matter of just building this. I had to build something that was interesting to me visually. And then I love sound, and going back and designing the sound to support the visuals was even more fun. I wanted to do something that would
One of the key things I love about your work is this relationship with memory.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to conjure memory in people, like they remember something or it reminds them of something. I'm not sure. I don't want to use the word nostalgia, like it seems a little deeper than nostalgia, and it's very emotional sometimes.
Yeah, I think I agree. Nostalgia is such a loaded word now, often with a negative connotation, but definitely deals with memory. I mean, I draw upon my memory every day of growing up in Los Angeles in the mid 20th century, what my neighbors were like. It all comes together in the work, basically.
And this another piece that we have here is Ernest and Edna.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
No.
No. Well, let's see it.
Yeah, have a look. Yeah, that's it.
That's the piece.
That's the piece.
We also have another piece.
A very short one.
Hideout movie.
Yeah, called Hideout.
That was Hideout movie.
That's it.
I guess we don't really need to explain that or anything.
No.
No.
Yeah, I like short films.
Short and sweet
Short and sweet.
and surprising.
Yeah, and that way it's up to the viewer to kind of make their own meaning out of them.
How does living in LA affect your work?
All the time.
It does?
Oh, yeah.
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 You've been here a long time, right?
I was born here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of changes. And I continue loving it. It's a good place to be.
What was it like recreating Bunker Hill?
Oh, that piece. That was a lot of fun, actually. It was, the piece you're referring to is the one at the Music Center.
Music Center. Right?
Yeah, that was done in 1984 or 5, I think. And it was, they wanted something that would, I came up with an idea of commemorating what the Music Center had replaced. So I did a lot of research on the architecture of that period, and again, the piece is not a precise architectural rendering of what was actually there, but it was my impression of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it kind of works. It kind of it has a nice form to it, and it's structurally interesting, and composition works fine, I think.
As a city, we've had a habit of getting rid of
Yeah.
a lot of our architecture.
Unlike Paris or London or other places, we tend to scrape it with a bulldozer
Right.
real quick. So that's L.A.
So if it wasn't for a lot of your work, I think a lot of us would not have any idea of what it might have looked like.
Well,
Because it's better than a photograph.
well, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show, Michael. I really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it too. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, I know it's short and sweet. There's a lot more online. Not only Michael's work, but Michael working. There's YouTube clips. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Alan.
And we're off.
Good.